Hi, you've just tuned into the Creative Life Podcast, the place where creatives go to find inspiration. My name is Jessica, and I'm your host, as well as a creative coach. Joining me today is Dr. Gibbons, our co-host, and today we are on the couch with Dr. Gibbons, and we're going to talk about our previous guest, Virgin Mary Pistol Grip. So this is really exciting. If you haven't seen this episode already, make sure you rewind to the last episode, listen to them, and while you're doing that, go ahead and like us, subscribe, and share as well. So Dr. Gibbons, refresh our mind, our memory about who we talked to last episode.
So Virgin Mary Pistol Grip is a local Omaha, Nebraska band, and they are an indie rock, but very personally engaging and kind of emotional lyrics that stir, but easily relate to so many and really touch the heart. And so we were able to have all 4 band members here with us.
Absolutely. So to refresh our memory, we had Jails, who does vocals and guitar. We had Wyatt, who does lead guitar and vocals. We had DJ, who does bass. And we also had Schroeder J. I love that nickname, by the way. And he did drums and vocals. And it was really just a beautiful thing to see them working together. They had such a synergy. So I'm going to start there because there was so much, once again, lots of synergy happening in there. They talked about their communication. So let's go ahead and let's kick it off for our creatives that are listening at home, maybe they're on the road, of how special it is to have that connection, not just with one person, but it's 4 people that they have this connection with.
Right. Frequently you'll find that bands who have had success in the past, not all of them have the original members. Sometimes it's a bit of an evolution, and some members may outgrow one another, some members grow together. Yet what I noticed with them, while not all original band members, they honor each other's growth independently, while also keeping they said keeping check on each other, accountability of sorts in their growth and their commitment to the group. Speaking specifically of in our next band practice, these are the expectations. Yet at the same time, as they're developing music, they're each contributing. And if someone makes a suggestion to another band member, yet it feels inauthentic, then it's being receptive to what they're saying, but also honoring what that inner creative is saying to you. What is your gut saying versus what is your ego saying, and being mindful of that.
Absolutely. And what I hear you saying is, what I love is psychological safety. So fangirl of Amy Edmondson, she definitely really is the forefront leader when it comes to psychological safety. And just to run down the definition in a quick and familiar way, is when it's the ability to speak without retribution or fear of retribution from other team members. So you're able to give feedback, you're able to be honest, and you're also able to receive feedback. So when I hear you talking about the recap, especially the things that you observed listening to Virgin Mary Pistol Grip, is that they have psychological safety. So I remember in the interview that Wyatt was mentioning once that there are some times when, not everybody gets along, when you do bump heads and you do have to find accountability, but the ability to do that and to still perform really makes me think that there's some psychological safety going on in this team. So some of the things that go into that are accountability, mutual respect, trust, and then also honor, like a mutual respect between the leader and the follower too, some followership and some leadership. So let's talk about the creatives that are listening today. How can they start to foster psychological safety, either within themselves, being safe enough to be honest with themselves, or safe enough to be honest with others? Maybe they're on a band, or they're in a dance team, or they're on a performance troupe. So let's talk about that.
I love that you asked that, because in the previous interview we discussed that it's very easy to do groupthink. It's easy to go along with what everyone kind of the majority is saying. But I think that if you are able to, with another, whether it's another band member or part of your troupe, to point out their authenticity, to honor specifically what you saw that they brought to the table. So highlighting that what the individual contributes is what is good for the collective, but it is that individuality that's critical. And I think if you were to begin to take note of that in others, for others to realize that they are showing up authentically, then you may also create your own environment in doing that to be able to show up in that way as well. Sometimes it's tricky, especially when Virgin Mary Pistol Grip mentioned egos. And if there are egos amongst the group, then it could be challenging, especially when giving feedback, especially when giving contrary opinions, different thoughts of directions to go and so forth. That can be challenging. And how you as an individual or you as the collective navigate the ego or egos, that can determine a great deal about the future of where you extend.
Absolutely. So what I want to do is I'm going to break down your feedback into two sections because I really want our creatives to get it. So one of the first things I'm going to break down is you talked about authenticity and you also talked about looking at what is authentic in another person. So what I want to highlight to the listeners at home is that this is really what your mind sees, your reality. You're creating an environment. In order for psychological safety to thrive, you really have to have a healthy environment. And a healthy environment comes first from the individuals that are within it, and it's our thinking. It's also our subconscious thinking, because we know from science that our subconscious cells, it thinks so fast. But however, what you're really leaning into is training our subconscious and our conscious. So when I look at you, Dr. Gibbons, one of the things that I love about you is your ability to see the positivity in everyone you meet. Not everyone can do that. Not everyone can look at someone and you can honestly see their strengths and you like to highlight that strength. You like to champion that strength. So whenever I think of Dr. Gibbons, I think of someone who is a champion of others, even those that aren't seen. So if I keep that in my thought, if something happens between you and I, like we don't agree, hey, on a guest or something, we can actually talk about that. Okay, why do you believe that this guest should be on the show? Why do you believe this guest shouldn't be pursued to be on the show? Because between the two of us, we have to have lots of communication. So I'm giving this example for our creatives because it really does matter. How you think about a person and how you train your brain to think about a person, it helps shape your environment and how you subconsciously react to that person when they come in the room. If I think constant doom and gloom, like, oh my goodness, Dr. Gibbons, all she does is just think positive about people. Doesn't she know that people are bad, that they have horrible qualities? She just said that person was great and they come in late every day. Like, do we want this person on our team? Do you see how my body started changing and how the environment started changing between us? That's the power of your spoken mind. But imagine if I repeated that thought to myself every day for days on end. So now you're talking about if you're collaborating with someone in an enclosed space, like they just mentioned last episode, you could be on the road or working together upwards of 8 months. If you're having those toxic thoughts, it's going to create a toxic environment. And what we saw from Virgin Mary Pistol Grip is that they definitely have positive thoughts, healthy thoughts about their environment and about their collaboration. And they also understand where each person has their voice. So that's the first thing I wanted to piece out of what you said. And then getting into more of the authentic self, because yes, we talked about this with Leah Baez, and so plug to go listen to that episode if you haven't already. But let's talk about authentic self in a collaborative. You mentioned groupthink earlier before. So how do you stop? How do you get out of groupthink? How do you get back to your authentic self and being true and honest and sharing your creativity with others that's shared?
First of all, thank you for your insights. I love how you're just pulling even more out of this. Something that you do beautifully
Thank
is
you.
finding in others, you allow them to tap into their strength when they may not realize they have it. Somehow you are able to find that within them, and you guide them to tap into their well
Thank you.
and how that comes.
And that's
So
why I love being a creative coach, honestly. I just love it. I just,
when groupthink is very easy to be caught up into, I think something that can be very helpful to tap into our own authentic creativity is if we allow ourselves to find our flow state. And sometimes in a group setting, that can be a challenge. So if a creative is feeling challenged with that in their group space, then I encourage you to independently find your ways that you enter your flow state, where the work comes easily and it doesn't feel like work and it's energizing. And before you know it, hours have passed and you've been immersed in your art. So I would say during your just independent flow state, when you notice that you're there, how would this version of me show up for my group? And I wouldn't even necessarily, it would be easy to think of, oh, but this person may react this way, this person may react this way. And that's what you were referring to, kind of the expected thought when you are telling yourself on an unconscious level what your expectations are, then that tends to be what you find. So rather than concerning yourself with this flow state version of you showing up, rather than concerning yourself how others may react, honoring this beautiful energy that you're in, and how does that look showing up in your energy, and how does that feed and fuel others? So I think what you had mentioned earlier about monitoring that internal dialogue and understanding, really stopping to catch yourself what you're saying, kind of the expectations that you're setting up, it can make a big difference, especially when you allow yourself to show up in your energy and your flow.
absolutely. And so, since we can't make that assumption, all of our listeners are seasoned artists, I do want to take a step back and just define flow. That way, for all of our listeners, we can make sure it's equitable listening. I understand what you mean by flow, but for those that are listening, maybe they're thinking about entering into your creative career or studying in a creative field. What do you mean when you say flow?
When you are, that's a great question, and thank you for that, for being mindful of all listeners. When entering flow, it's when you are entering something with joy, something that you love to do. There's actually a great deal of research behind this. Google away on it. But with this, you find yourself a continual movement, yet it doesn't feel labor intensive. Or even if it is hard, you're hard at it, it's not something that is exhausting to you. You feel fueled by this. You feel so tapped in to you. And so I think maybe that's one of the best ways that I can relate the flow state and how that feels.
No, absolutely. I do think that that's a great definition of that. And as you mentioned, there is more research that's out there. And the good thing about our podcast is that we actually have a blog as well. So we can give some helpful links to help people just start their search. I believe that a search journey, when you just have a little bit of navigation, it really helps you understand which articles to look at, especially if you're looking at scholarly articles or journals of that nature. So thank you so much for defining that. And then it just makes our space a little bit more inclusive. And speaking of inclusivity, I think we'd be remiss to not mention the social justice aspect of Virgin Mary Pistol Grip with their suicide prevention, which is a big thing to say, this matters to us. It went so far as the lead singer Jules having blue nail polish, and you could even see it on the show, and his blue mug, and just understanding that this is part of our core values. This is what we stand for. So let's talk about social justice in art and the meaning of to do it, to not do it. Just give me your thoughts initially when you hear an artist say, this is my social justice cause, this is our music supports this message.
It's very interesting that you ask that, because we all have something that is so meaningful to us, something that has touched us in a very deep way. Yet at the same time, depending on your audience, the words alone, social justice, can be triggering. And so I particularly love that mental health is something that Virgin Mary Pistol Grip is, let's talk about it. Let's have it in the open. Let's have it on our nails. This is something that we all have. We all have mental health, and what is the state of it, and how are we caring for that? I do know that, of course, there are components of social justice that can bring about conflict, that could be potentially polarizing, and that is when, as a creative, you step into, do I do what I do for everyone else? Do I find a joy by giving people what they want? Or does my joy come from me, that authenticity? And even if you feel that your social justice, whether it's your platform or your belief, even if you feel that you could potentially lose a following or, a fan base of some sort, at the same time, you can gain so many more by that. So, and I mean, it's interesting, even just in conversations, aside from creatives, discussing issues of social justice can I don't know, that can be emotional. It can get heated. But they're real. And I think our lived experiences, particularly as creatives, I think your lived experience, it means so much when that is your social justice platform. When you can speak to your experience, you can speak to what loved ones have experienced. You speak to what you know, and that's what you're going to be passionate about. That the people who some may even disagree with you, but not even care, because they love the work that you do. They love that you're showing up the way that you do. They love the creative and the authentic version that you are. So I think while it can be challenging, it can be scary to do that, I think it's the only way that you really find joy in it.
Right. And so I think your explanation is really helpful. And I want to go in just a little bit deeper, because I do believe that social justice, it's very important. Like you said, it can be polarizing, just the term alone of itself. You can say, oh, I care about mothers, and someone will say, well, what about the fathers? And that's okay, because everyone is going to have a reaction when you pick a social justice cause. Now, there are artists that decide to not make any type of commentary when it comes to social justice, but they might actually monetarily contribute to that cause. So to say that you have to support a social justice cause, definitely not a have to. It's a, do you want to? And if you do want to, really think about how this is going to impact others, not just you personally, but if you're in a band, how's it going to impact others in the band? Do they share those qualities? Do they share your passion for this? Is this something they also want to champion? Because Jules mentioned that sometimes, people come up and have conversations with him about it. And what if someone comes up to another member of the band and has a conversation about it? So personally, I think that social justice, there's definitely a moral burden on my heart. And when you get to know people, sometimes they open up and they share it. Artists, they might paint it, they might draw it, they might dance it, they might feel it in different ways and share those experiences in different and wild, just beautiful, diverse ways. So when it comes to social justice, like you said, understand your authenticity, understand the risks as well, because I don't think that people should take this lightly, especially in a social media world, a cancel world. There might be a group of people who truly disagree with your social justice movement or the causes that you support, and you have to be willing to receive that backlash or at least have a barrier to keep yourself protected from that. So if you are going to champion something, make sure it's true to you, it's authentic, that you've done your research, that you've also checked with your inner circle to make sure that they're okay with, especially if it impacts them, that you're all going to go forward and do this together as a solid united front. And then also have a remediation plan. If something backfires, if someone doesn't like what you said, if someone becomes violent or angry or insulting, what is your back out plan? Meaning, how are you going to keep yourself and your loved ones safe? Because we just know that it can potentially happen, unfortunately, in the society that we all live in and coexist in. So thank you so much for your thoughts on that, because this is definitely something that they're very open about, and perhaps some of our creatives back at home they want to be open about this as well. So one of the things that they also talked about is that they are unapologetically passionate, independent band, unafraid to be themselves. And they actually choose to stay independent. They are, of course, open to being supported by a label. And we did get into the conversation about to stay independent, or how people say sell out, which I highly disagree with the term sell out. I think that is very limiting. And the choice to go with a label. Now, lots of artists face this same consideration. There are authors that are self-published, like they own the rights to their works, and they help with the book art. They use different platforms, media platforms. They're promoting themselves. Artists, dancers, promoting their dance and getting themselves into competitions before they can join a dance company. So it is a big life decision, a strategic career decision as well for artists. So what are some of your thoughts as a coach, if an artist were to come to you and they were considering it, what are some self-reflective thoughts or questions that they can ask themselves during this process?
I think that's a really great question, because it's so vast. That decision truly is life-changing. So I think one thing to consider is to ask yourself is why? Why would I do this? Why would I not do this? To what benefit would this be? In what way will this impact the work and the art that I do? Will my current level of joy in my creation and my authenticity, will I be able to maintain that if I were to go with a label? If there are some sacrifices, am I okay with that? Am I still showing up as me? And you mentioned the whole sellout thing, and if someone else says that, who cares? It doesn't matter anyway. But thinking of not just how does this help me now, where will this lead me? And will I still be at peace with the art that I'm making? Will I still be at peace with the creative that I am? Do I see that this could lead to growth as a creative? There are most likely, growth monetarily. Is that enough? Will the monetary growth also enable you to grow as an artist? So I think those are just some things to think on there.
No, I think those are absolutely amazing tidbits for our creatives to just keep. So once again, just remembering Okay, the why, that's such a big thing. You know, in Lean, they talk about the 5 whys and going deeper. As you ask yourself the whys and it gets considerably deeper, you're really getting into the root of it. I want to go with a label. Why? Because I want to play with bigger shows. Why? Because I want to expand my audience. Why? Because I don't think I have enough listeners. Why do you think that? I just don't think that my voice is being listened to. Why do you think that? Because I'm not producing the music that I want to produce. I don't have the skill set or the mixing skills, and I need someone to help me. That's a big difference. You see how the whys go all the way down?
Yes.
So as an artist, your whys will be as expansive or as transparent as you will allow them to be. And I think that what you're giving them as advice is wonderful advice. The why, thinking about the monetary, thinking about what you're willing to give up, and also throw it in like what you will receive too.
Yes.
Because sometimes having a team, I always talk about a huddle, how important it is, because sometimes a label can be your huddle and sometimes they're not your huddle.
Right.
So you think about who is your team, who's your group, who's your tribe. So that's amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Gibbons, for diving into this episode with me. And so for those at home, if you would like to work with either of us, know that we are here to help you in your creative journeys. And if you like this episode, please like it, subscribe it, share it with your friends, reshare it on social media, and also send us back your comments and your feedback. We would love to know what you think. And that's a wrap for us. This is the Creative Life Podcast, the place where creatives go to find inspiration. Thank you.